brother who gave much love to the music. He gets much respect. Can you dig it? Yeah!
Welcome to the Michael P. America Show, and here we are. Wow, yeah, this is episode 5, I believe. Maybe episode 6, not really sure. I can't remember. I've done so many episodes, not really sure. But guess what? We're here today, and we have a lot to talk about. So, I took my time actually coming back, and I had to really do some soul search in regards to how did I want to do the show? How do I want to cover all the things that are going on? And what type of message did I really want to relay to the public? And I figured it all out. As you can see on the bottom, you see those nice little line on the bottom, and it says peace versus the altered state. So the altered state, okay, and you're going, all right, where's this guy coming from with peace versus the altered state? Well, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I'm one of these guys that truly believe that peace is the true state of humanity, the true state of man. There's a lot of text out there that tells you that before the fall of man, that man was actually living and created and existed in peace. Now, then on the other side, you get to the science stuff and you get some, Darwinistic type theories, a lot of hypothesis, and they were hunter-gatherers, blah, 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 blah. But one thing is that in order to build, you can only build in times of peace. In times of great violence and carnage, it's absolute destruction, and who has time to build because you're spending so much time destroying and tearing things down. So the altered state is basically just that, is the altered state of humanity. When people are acting something other than what they truly are, that becomes the altered state. And so when we look at mankind, we look at humanity, we are saying all people, male, female, green, yellow, white, black, brown, whatever you want to call it. If you want to get into a conversation about race, okay, all races, we'll say that. I don't really believe in race, but I'm one of those guys that believe that from two came all. So, so I'm one of those guys. So anyway, but the reality is, what we see is that a lot of crazy things going on, that the truth seems to be something that's very hard to find. So in the last week or so, we watched I guess you call it a prominent Republican figure get killed, was murdered, and was murdered by what looks like probably one of their own. And I know that's kind of a hot button when you say that, because they're a little sensitive, even though that they're a pretty sadistic group. They don't care what happens to other people. As a matter of fact, let's go after all of the immigrants that aren't here legally. And not only do we get rid of them, we're going to stick them in cages. And we kind of saw that the last time these same folks were in power, that stripping kids from their children and putting everybody in cages. And so it's kind of ironic to me that you talk about you believe in God and you believe in faith, but you have no problem sticking your brothers and sisters in cages, sending them to sadistic foreign countries or sadistic regimes that they didn't even come from. And many of these people that are fleeing into Western countries, and let's just say the United States, because that's where we're at. They're trying to flee the very problems that the United States and other Western countries created. And we're not having that conversation because, we wanted to exploit their resources. And the way to do that was to destabilize governments and empower people that some of the worst people, and you put them in charge. And of course, they unleash tyranny on the people there. And now we have climate change, which they want to tell you that doesn't exist. These cats are hilarious, man. It's like they're telling you what you see and what you feel isn't real. They're saying that they want to describe what's going on. I mean, these cats are so much like Nazis, it's ridiculous. And then they're sensitive if you call them Nazis. You know, well, most of these shootings that are out there are actually being done by people who are affiliated with them, which kind of makes you wonder who really benefits from these shootings. And if you look at the prison industrial complex, military industrial complex, the arms industrial complex, and you can probably say they're all pretty much one and the same. And then you have the technocrats, and technology is making money off of incarceration and getting providing technology to these prisons, these corporate prisons. There's like 4,000 known companies that profit off the demise, the legal demise. It's really illegal, but they on the books they make it look legal. The demise of people. And I will tell you, if you really want to make this country better, peace is really the only way, because we see what greed and grifting and, weapons and all this, it's all tied into the same thing. So we're not having that conversation. And my deal is that I will tell you, I'm not anti-Trump. I could care less about the guy. I'm pro-democracy. That's where I'm at. And I see our democracy just slipping and slipping and slipping through all the lies and the bigots and the hypocrites. Let's do the trifecta. Yeah, lies, bigots, hypocrites. That's a real deal. So we need to really have a conversation about that. So, what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to play a little something from our Sandy Hook people, because I told them a while back that I wanted to help them. And so here it is. Listen to the guys at Sandy Hook.
So, first day of school, last day of your lives.
I want to kill people.
Bang, bang! You're dead.
I set the date. You are going to regret not talking to me. Oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but you will.
Hey, fair warning. Stay home tomorrow if you want to live.
Today's the day?
Today is the day.
The day my massacre begins.
Some of you guys are all right. Don't go to school tomorrow. I mean it.
After all the name calling,
I want to go down as the best school shooter in history.
That is from our folks at Sandy Hook. And they're making some really good points. And what's, I think, really unnerving about the commercial you just saw from Sandy Hook was that if you listen closely to what they were saying, a lot of the messaging that the comedians were putting out there came from a lot of the shooters, and it also speaks to, I believe, our attitudes when it comes to like mass shootings and all of that. I think that that's it's very telling in a digestible format, because until they actually put the writing down there, you don't really understand that. Okay, these guys, I don't know, this doesn't seem funny, but that was the whole idea. There's, the comedians were delivering it, but the idea was to let you know that this is serious stuff. It's not funny. The things that we're seeing are absolutely appalling. And when you get into shooting, the arms industry, they're making serious profit, billions and billions of dollars a year. The industry is huge. How many jobs? Something like around, 300,000 to 400,000 jobs based on the arms industry. And what was even scary about the arms industry is a lot. they're also in the prison industrial complex. You know, they're spending money with those guys. All these things are all interconnected. The poverty pimps and all of that, they're all interconnected. And people are America. They're just grifting America, and they're right now. It's really obvious, and they're doing it in our face. The illness of it is that they're really sadistic about it. They could care less how many people lose their lives. It's all about their bottom line and how powerful it makes them. It's very much the same thing. You know, you send the National Guard to cities that don't need the National Guard, and you know what they're hoping? They're hoping that they could create such panic and anxiety that they could start filling up those corporate prisons that they have contracts with. And we know at the end of the day that a lot of this is really aimed towards Black people. You know, they're going to use Latinos and Hispanics so that they could kind of ease their racism in, and primarily because we do have a lot of Hispanic and Latino immigrants. But they're not the only immigrants that we have. We have immigrants coming from all over, but it seems to be if you have a little bit of color, they don't want you. And that's really in their messaging every day. The dog whistles go. Come on, DC is predominantly Black city. And what's he going to do? I'm going to clear the streets and so that we can go eat dinner. Yeah. All the billionaires, the tech billionaires, they're all moving close to DC because they know that's the grifting capital of the world. They know that they can buy whatever they want. That's the whole idea. And so it's kind of interesting because they have so many factions dealing with this administration, white Christian nationalists. We know they're racist. Okay. I don't know what Bible they're into, but they got their own thing. And I'll do a thing on how they're actually recruiting for that later on. You know, then you have the basic Republican Party, which they have pretty much dwindled down to nothing, who really wanted to do the bidding of the party itself, actually be conservatives. Okay, then you have, you know, your Nazis, and they go through all kinds of, you know, various names, Proud Boys and whatever you want to call them. As a matter of fact, we don't know who ICE really is. My guess is there's a lot of white nationalists and a lot of Nazis and Klan members that they put there on the street, because just by listening to some of the altercations that they've had. But the bottom line is that, you know, right now this administration is building their own police force, their own military force. They're getting help with tech companies. And I want you guys to hear some of the things that I'm saying, because the American people are still doing business with the very people that are actually taking away your democracy. And, you know, tariffs are really this nothing but tax, and we can equate that to sales tax. Who's going to pay it? The American people. Why do you think everything is going up? Because they put tariffs on everything. And so somebody has to pay for it. So you really need to think about how you're spending your money. Why do you need to think about that? Because they're using your money to destroy your democracy. They're going to make the cost of living impossible for you. You know, right now we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of around 3 million transient families out there. They did a count of like just under 500,000 living in RVs. So that's how expensive having a house is. They don't want you to have a house. They want you to be a ward of the system. Even though they say, well, we're against welfare and we're against this, and that. They have no problem institutionalizing you. They have no problem taking away from you, stealing from you, destroying your education, you know, filling you up with all kinds of bad propaganda and information. They have no problem destroying you, and that's what they're doing. And even the folks that they voted for, you know, I have no idea, you know, I just thank God I'm not vexed like they are, because these cats seem to be, they can't make decisions at all. They're so counterintuitive that they put in party somebody who doesn't care about anybody but himself or themselves. And that's why we have this problem. So a lot of our foreign policy has created the migration issues. We try to act like we forgot about those, but this has been going on for decades. You know, taking countries and overthrowing democracies, or overthrowing, social political structures, and putting dictators in who are actually waging war against the people. Now we're having them wage war against us, the people, and that's really what you're seeing. But this is what's creating the migration issue. And even the Democrats failed to address that. And I think that that was really sad because most people will not leave their homes. They don't leave because they've got nothing better to do, that this is such a great place. People are leaving because they want to live. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's criminals. The criminals are everywhere. And the criminals actually align themselves together. The people are the ones who are allowing themselves to be separated because they want to believe in something that that's destructive, and not because it's destructive they want to believe in it. They are taking in the sales pitch. They're going for the propaganda, and they want to believe it's like that because they've been, there's a predisposition. They've been predisposed to the lie, and that's what we're getting. And even folks that supposedly call themselves Christian, if Christ is the truth, and the guy at the helm that's running things and most destructive personalities, and he's lying to you all the time, that is so counterintuitive to the things that you say you believe. All right, so the gun industry is insane. Okay, I personally don't have an issue with guns. Growing up, everybody I knew had guns, but they weren't killing each other. There was always, a few bad apples out there, and the state would make an example of them. But when you have corporate prisons, then corporation industry tries to find a way to up their numbers, how to increase their bottom line. So they have to become poverty pimps, right? And then there are those politicians who try to make their names off of prosecuting and persecuting the poor. So it looks good, you march this guy up there and it's like, oh, he's a thief and he stole this. But who is the guy or the people that put the stumbling block before this person and before this community so that they weren't able to be educated well, to actually find work, to actually redline where they want to live? All of these things. At the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that there's some really nasty people. They want to make their money and they don't care who they hurt. And that's what America's really dealing with. We have to come to the reality that the grift is on. I mean, the grift is on. In my day, you couldn't sit here and make $4 billion just because you got in the White House. In my day, you couldn't have all these charges and bankruptcies and lawsuits and all these things and even be a senator unless nobody knew about it. So, the head grifter, his record, everybody knows. He doesn't want you to talk about it. It's so funny because I always say he's like that elephant, in the parade that craps all over the place and gets mad at you, if you say, hey man, look what you did. He don't want to hear that. He's just like, shut up, keep marching and step right in it. Clean it up. I'm going to keep going. And that's what the elephant does. He just keeps making the mess. So moving forward, we need to understand some things. Industry is the very industry that we support, or industries, are the very industries that are destroying and stripping away our democracy. There's only one way to starve those industries out, and there's only one way to legally and lawfully wage a defense against the tyranny that these guys are heaping upon what's left of our democracy. And America is going to have to make some decisions. And I will tell you that peace, absolute peace through nonviolence. Martin Luther King was 100% correct. And I think later on, he really started to find out what that impact, how correct he was and how much of an impact that could actually be. Enough to get him killed. The guy who talked about peace and love, and you assassinate him? And I'll tell you, I know why they assassinated him. All you got to do is do the math. It's the math at the end of the day that got him killed. But peace is through nonviolence is absolutely the way. If you want this democracy back, and if you want the world to have a chance, peace is 100% through nonviolence the way to do it. So now I'm going to play something special by the Reverend Johnny Lee Clary, who's no longer with us. If you were a wrestling fan back in the day, Johnny Angel, you know his history, it wasn't good until he redeemed himself. But you need to hear this because this is very relative to how the youth, how they're acquiring the mind of the youth, and how they're going out and recruiting the youth. So you need to really, really pay attention to this. And I'm going to play it right now.
To keep from getting beaten by this guy that she was living with, I would stay out on the streets and I would get very little sleep. And pretty soon at 14 years old, I'm thinking about committing suicide when I met a man from the Ku Klux Klan. Now, the Ku Klux Klan is a very violent, hateful, racist organization. I don't need to give you an education on what that's all about. But they are after children such as I. Today they go for the children that comes from the broken home, where a single parent is trying to make ends meet, where a child is not doing very well in school, and they go after children like that, and they begin to encourage them in the ways of Satan, because that's what this hate group is all about. Now, they didn't come to me in the name of Satan. They came to me in the name of Jesus and tried to claim that they were a Christian organization. But Jesus, the word, I want to tell you something. The Holy Bible says many will come as wolves in sheep's clothing. There are many false doctrines and false prophets out there. That's why you've got to test the word for yourself. And I didn't realize that at the time. See, the Klan says, oh yeah, we're a Christian organization, and they began to talk to me. I wrote them for information because I watched them on TV, and an older man came around and he said, son, he said, tell me about your life, son. He goes, what's your favorite movies? What's your favorite books? What's your favorite subjects at school? He said, how do you feel about all these blacks being forced to go to school with white people? How do you feel about how when blacks don't get their way, they riot in our streets? How do you feel about all these border jumping Mexicans coming over the border and taking jobs away from decent, hard-working white Americans? And as I began to listen to these type of things, I thought, you mean this guy really wants my opinion? Up until then, it was shut up, get out of my class, go to the principal's office, get out of this house, kids should be seen and not heard, you're only 14 years old. These are the type of things that I heard as a child, see. That is why today I have a heart for the youth, because no one was there to encourage me, but all of a sudden this guy from the cult was there encouraging me, but he wasn't encouraging me in the right ways. But I thought I found a friend because I thought he really cares about what my opinion is. So I thought I could open up to him, and I said, you know, I seen my daddy kill himself when I was 11, and my mama said she didn't want me and sent me out here. And he said, my gosh, son, you've had a horrible life. What you need is a family, son. If you'll come join the Ku Klux Klan, we'll be a family to you. You're smart. You're intelligent. Don't you listen to those kids at school where they tell you you're dumb, stupid, and ignorant. They're the ignorant ones. He said, son, he said, you could be a future leader of tomorrow. He said, what you need is a family. He said, the word Ku Klux Klan is taken from the Greek word kuklus, which means circle, and clan from Scotland, which means family. It stands for circle of family. Son, if you'll join the Klan, you'll have that family you always needed. And son, I'll tell you something else too. Nobody will ever mess with you again. So man, when he pulled out that Ku Klux Klan Youth Corps application at 14 years old, I joined the KKK. And I want to tell you something. This same scenario is being used today by cults all over this world. And it's being used by the Klan. It's being used by Satanists. It's being used by drug pushers and by pimps and people like that.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. And you probably want to play this a few times. But what we have to understand is that all of these ills that we are suffering from, they are predispositions. They are programmed in. And much of that is to benefit the powers that be, the real power. Those are the real power is the power you don't see. So, and this is the reason why I'm not going to get into it with Trump and, you know, do I like him or do I dislike him? I don't have time for that, because I realize that's not the real power. It's who or whatever is actually behind him. And so one of the things that we have to understand, the current situation that we're in is not a situation that just came out of nowhere, and it wasn't just one man. And I got to play this because I can. So much for the party of law and order. That looks like the party of lawless and absolute chaos. And here's the sad thing. Guess who's running things now? All those folks that probably went to jail, that's who's running the country. The best that they could do was to go defecate on somebody's desk. That was like, what do we do when we get in there? I don't know, man. I got to go really bad. Okay, here you go. That was the best that they could come up with. All right. I keep playing that because we can't forget where we're at, because that is exactly who and what's running the country. I'm not going to keep you too much longer because I'm going to do another part. We'll talk about fascism, authoritarianism, totalitarianism. That's going to be the next conversation. But I'm going to tell you right now, you need to join me. It is peace versus the altered state. And right now, the altered state is trying to run things. And you see, all they're doing is destroying everything, destroying democracy. They're getting rid of all of the entities created by the federal government that would help ensure democracy and also provide for the benefit of the people. They're undermining all of that. They're going to give it out to their corporate people. You know, that's what they're going to do. Corporate people are going to try to charge you an arm and a leg just to live. That's where it's all coming. That's why corporations love this. They always wanted to take the services of the government. So remember that. So I tell you, coming up, we're going to have that conversation about the 4,000 companies that support the corporate prison system, the arms and the military industrial complex, how they make money off of the suffering of innocent people, and now law-abiding people are on their list. And that's how you know we're in such decline, that even law-abiding people now, they do not differentiate between the criminal and the law-abiding citizen. That's a real scary thing. So I'm Michael P. America. Thanks for indulging me, and I'm going to be right back. It is really about that time for us to go.